like, I mean, I think about it 10, 15 years ago, yes, Obama just been elected, but gay marriage was still an iffy, and Gavin Newsom was daring and weird for officiating at gay marriages on the steps of City Hall in San Francisco. And everyone was like, oh my God, that was less than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We're now back to it, some might say, but at the same time, you know how they say they can't close the door after the barn after the horses are out? Isn't the horse kind of out? So you are dealing with students who have, in many ways, a different experience only because Obama was president. That was a given. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Gay marriage did not, I will say quite honestly, my daughters who are in their 20s, their godparents are a gay couple, okay? I never thought that they would, my husband and I, when Frank and Chris got married, never thought we would be alive to see that marriage. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Not in my lifetime would I see, as far as my daughter is concerned, and they're in their 20s, it's like, of course, it's not even a question.
Yeah.
I will marry the person I love.
Yeah.
The person I love. Not the man I love.
Right.
The person I love. So the needs that you had, while they're similar, are different for your students. What has evolved? What has slipped back? What is the conversation like? Is that too much of a question? Too many questions?
I mean, right. It's what I would say. It's a question that I've been really sitting with deeply, especially since, and you know, as a black gay man in America, you couldn't have told me that I would be surprised that Trump was going to win the election. I knew Trump was going to win the election the second he started running. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things where I'm just like, in my head, I'm already thinking like, how does this transform the conversation, transform the work? What I'm seeing our students navigate right now is starting to go back to those times to where I was navigating at those same conversations. And I'm confident that our students are still, I think about we're in the San Fernando Valley and still recognizing like, yeah, we have some of LA in us because we're LA at the end of the day. And also there's a different conversation that kind of happens in the Valley because we don't have as many resources. So it's still one of those things that's a little bit in the closet, one might say. So I think of our students who are talking about, just had a conversation today in space with a lot of our students. One, mixed status, especially with the intersectionality of their identities, and having to navigate that and seeing like, I know really big during my time was undocuqueer. And I'm curious to see like, is this a bigger conversation that we're now going to see again? Yeah. We're talking about students who are like, I can't go home. I don't have a home to go to. I have 2 students now who are navigating displacement, or how am I going to be at home or find a home and now I have to go to school. So I'm seeing these similar conversations that I can't say that much has transitioned. Whereas before there was this social stigma that I would see that was like the acceptance, the trending. One might even say, the performance, the performative behaviors, these things being like, okay, cool. I would prefer someone performing and trending my sexuality versus someone shaming and neglecting and invalidating my sexuality. Now, quite frankly, I'd love to see the liberation and just, full acceptance spot on. Yeah. So I think, when I'm thinking about these dialogues and I'm recognizing that before also, and I think, granted due to COVID as well, the sense of advocacy and leadership where folks were, being comfortable, which I would prefer folks to be comfortable over having to activate and get involved in these different ways to change the landscape of their own lives. So I'm starting to see also now that there was this sense of like, okay, cool, like I'll get involved when I can. I'm going to prioritize me being a student and prioritize some of these other things happening in my life to where now it's like, oh, I need to get involved. I need to do something. I need to change what's happening because it's also impacting my future. So it's these types of things now that I'm noticing where I'm like, I love advocacy and I want advocacy all the time. And I was like, oh, upon first coming back to CSUN in this role, I also was like, oh, students aren't as interested in advocacy, or in this sense, which, because I'd always say CSUN has a huge activism population, and that's why I loved CSUN from the get-go. And so I think there's a sense of now, like, how do we kind of get activated, and like, what does it look like to be an organizer and being strategic in our approaches so we can see change in our systems? So I think these are some of the things that I'm kind of listening to and informing myself by what our students are speaking about. And I even thinking about, okay, so what in the Pride Center are we doing? So even this Friday, I'm actually collecting my team, and we're actually going to sit there and say, all right, y'all, we've been doing all these different things, and like, there's a change, and there's this feedback that we've collected. How can we start to think about where we are today and where we need to be going, because we have a long road ahead?
When we talk about the Pride Center being a safe space, what do we mean? Because safe space is, I'm fleeing an active shooter safe space.
Yeah.
Or safe space is a place. What is a safe space? When it comes to a community that has existed as long as there have been Homo sapiens and early humans, like you go back thousands of years. Think about Neanderthals and early modern humans. We go that far back, and we actually have anthropologists on this campus who are doing research that can prove it.
100%.
One of the leading anthropologists when it comes to studying early modern humans and Neanderthals is on our campus.
Yeah.
But we have society in more recent times has refused to acknowledge. And then we're in LA, which means not only may a student be othered because of their sexual orientation or identity, but they're othered because of their immigration status, or they're othered because of the color of their skin, or they're othered because of the religion they practice. Because this is LA. It's not homogeneous.
Yep.
What type of safe space is the Pride Center?
I always say, if you can go back in time to being a young kid and you drew your first drawing and you were like, to your guardian, look, and imagine them going like, wow, that is beautiful. I want to post that on the fridge. You feel so validated in that moment. You might not even be able to know what to name. That is the experience that when we talk about a safe space, I feel validated. I feel like I can exist and there's no conditional love that's a part of it. It's this sense of like, show up. Like, show up. And also, you can teach us too. Like, if we do something wrong, you can teach us. You can say, I didn't really like that. Can you do this instead? So I think it's, when we say safe space, we're really looking at, I want you to come in your most authentic self and be able to just feel like you are validated in that. And I think that when you can do that, you're also recognizing the people around you. You're also feeling safer. And that idea, you're also able to focus on all the things that's happening. And I think so that right there is first and prime. And I also say you're willing to ask for help. And help can look like whatever the case is. But I know that if I'm in an environment that sees me, that I don't have to perform, that I don't have to wear a mask in, and I'm even taking some of this right out of the words of the folks that I even spoke with today, I feel like I can be. And so that's my goal. Personally, that's how I want to train my team. That's how I want everyone to show up and just say, y'all, if we can have folks walk away with this, because I always say, oh, yeah, we can say we're a safe space. But I say, we know because on these comment cards, this is what will show up. We'll know because folks will say this. We'll know because folks will say, thank you. Have a great day. We know because we'll see more smiles. So really getting them to point out, how do we know it's safe? What does safe look like? So if you were to walk in the Pride Center, you'd see people smiling, laughing, looking down, comfortable, having a conversation, playing games, studying, reading, showing up and being their most authentic selves.
How would you, we had to visit her last week, we don't bother bothering. But he would accuse that space of being exclusionary.
It's wild to me. I'm like, what? That, and that's what's funny because I'm like, no, our space is for everyone to come inside of that space. We have our allies. We even have allies on our team, on our staffing. And we say allies in the sense of we want to ensure that everyone that is either in the community or not in the community supports the community. And so an ally is someone who's going to support and show up and make sure that they're not doing things that dismisses or invalidates, or to generalize in this category, create an unsafe space. So that's why I'm always just like, what are we exclusion? Because if someone who came in who was an LGBTQIA 2S+ and sat at the table with us and ate food with us and danced with us and studied with us and learned with us, we're not telling them they can't be with us. So yet when we're going to these other spaces that are telling you that you don't exist and you're not allowed to be here, or you can't show up with your nails painted because you're a boy, or you can't wear dresses because you were biologically, quote unquote, born X, Y, and Z. All these things, I'm just like, well, no, that's exclusionary because you're telling me because of who I am, I can't be in a space. So we're saying because of who you are, we want to create a space for you. And I think that's why I'm always just like, oh, okay, tell me more how you get into this. I was like, I got questions for them. But yeah, I think in that essence, inclusion is what we practice. And that goes for everyone that walks in this space. And we want to celebrate our LGBTQ folks. And we want to do that in ways that also educate everyone that comes inside of the space.
So that everybody comes into the space feels safe, regardless.
And I think this is when safe, because, one thing I talk to my teams about is you're going to have folks who are coming in who want to be educated or who also don't want to be educated at times. And I said, our role is not to sit there and tell them that it is not our job to educate. Because I think one thing that can get challenging, I know when I'm off the clock and folks are asking me things, I'm like, right now, it's not my role to educate you because I want to live and be safe in my identity. But when we come into that space, I'm always like, hey, y'all, it's our job to educate folks. So, if you hear someone who's misgendering or dead naming or doing things that invalidate someone's identity, then I want you to step in and say, hey, you might not know what dead naming is. Dead naming is when you're using a name that someone no longer goes by. And they could also legally change those names as well, too. Please refer to the name that that they have told you is their name. If you're misgendering someone, go with their gender that they're also expressing to you. And if that's really challenging for you, start with their name. Maybe it's an opportunity to learn and build some more engagement and rapport with someone, because you're probably just speaking from a place of fear or just not understanding what's happening in front of you right now.
We've talked about the evolution of the Pride Center, but it's going to continue to evolve. Where do you see the students leading it? And I say that intentionally.
Oh, yes.
You may be its direct manager, but you're not its leader.
Nope. Oh, and thank you for also asking that. Yes. So, and as someone who is, as I said, like community development is one of my key theories. It's my doctor program. It's what I envision and am passionate about. And that starts with the community. That's shared vision, that's shared leadership. For me, I know there's going to be ample opportunities where how do we, one thing that we're really driving is like trying to make sure that we're collecting surveys. We're trying to make sure that we collect input and feedback from our students in real ways, most importantly as well, too. So they can tell us, what do you want and what do you need? One thing that I did last fall, especially upon my start here, was like, we call this the State of the Leadership Summit. And bringing in student leaders or students who also say, which I'm a firm believer, leadership is when you can influence anyone to follow you in some regard. I'm like, if you feel like you can be a leader by showing up, then you're a leader. And I want you to start there. And we can do the rest of the work and identify which type of leader you are. You could grow into whichever leadership you want. So bringing them into this space. So it's about, I want to say 14, 15 students and getting insight and being informed from them and helping to guide that. So that helped us kind of shift what that looks like. I'm a firm believer of talking to the students. I have to talk to the students. I can't create spaces for people if you're not having dialogue with them. So that's another thing. So through these different activities and exercises, one thing that, that I was so hurt by when I came back to CSUN was the amount of LGBTQ clubs were next to none. We had our Trans Wellness Alliance, but also they were kind of rebuilding. We do have the Queer Coalition of Social Workers, but the Pride Center was here and all of them were there. So one thing that was really important, which also was why I had this state of leadership, was how do we start to bring those back? So being able now that there's a real relationship between those clubs and orgs, there's even cutie pie labs. That, right, we have a research lab for a queer focus on, don't quote me, although Dr. Valdez, who is running that lab, making sure that we're connected to them. So really being able to say, if we're also having these connections, which was one of the visions I had when I was a student, it's like, if we can connect all of the queer activities, programs, departments, et cetera, on campus to each other, we can also do some really powerful things.
How do you reach out? Because realistically, because we do have faculty who are national leaders when it comes to advocacy for the queer communities in a variety of arenas. But that is a problem with this campus. It's so big. And there's so much going on. I often think that the right hand isn't talking to the left hand or is unaware.
Yeah.
It's not that they're conflicting and there's conflict, but they don't know. How do you reach out? How do you bridge that? Because at the bottom of the day, it's the students.
I'm a door knocker. I'm a firm believer of I'm coming to knock on your door. And I think the first thing is I know when you can get the FaceTime and really talk about that alignment, really talk about the opportunities that could exist, recognize the climate that we're in and having some real conversations, but also even intentionally state, I'm sure a lot of the folks have had a lot of conversations last year and this year leading up. My intent is that we all can create a coalition of conversations that are in alignment. And I'll even say that have room for misalignment because we're so complex to where there is an opportunity for us to also acknowledge when things are falling out of that so we can build, adapt, and continue to grow. So I would say that it's the door. It starts for me with the door knocking. I need face-to-face. If we got to go virtual, we got to go virtual. That's fine. I'm going to find you after that, though, as well, too. And that's what I did with students, with faculty, with staff, which is how I found out about the cutie pie labs. I started also getting out there. So I think it really also took a person that was willing to say, okay, I'll take the charge to connect us all. And so I would say that opportunity there was powerful. Also, yet, whew, okay, there's a lot of conversations that I'm realizing that is taking place on the disconnectedness.
The Pride Center has only been around, I'm trying to do the math, not even quite 15 years yet. Since it is student funded, not state funded and not government funds, then its future is assured as long as the students support it. Where do you see that's so young.
Yeah.
It really is actually young.
Yeah, it is. No, it really is.
What growth does it still need to do, and where is it going to be in another 15 years?
Yeah, that's such a powerful question because I know for me, and I say that because, I think of Cal State Northridge. I think of the San Fernando Valley. I think of the resources that exist in it. The Pride Center is not also only connecting with our students, faculty, and staff on campus. We're also connecting with external organizations, guests that we have that are not CSUN students.
Well, because alumni, too.
Alum as well, too, which is a big growth area for us as well, too. One thing I noticed, especially because, I've had a lot of my peers who are doing some amazing, phenomenal things that are also like, hey, do you have any folks who can do X, Y, and Z? And I'm just like, I got you. I'll send them to you right away. So I think, and some of those students have been loving the opportunities from that. Also, I'm like, we need something more formalized to make sure this is happening even if I'm not here, because shouldn't be dependent on me.
Yeah.
Should really be dependent on its own systems. So on top of the alumni work, but also recognizing the imprint that we have on San Fernando Valley. And so how do we also kind of bridge that to where students are finding more resources as well too? So, I think because I've only been here for a year, that question is still such an exploratory conversation for me. That I'm also like, for me, I'm just like, well, first off, where's our conference? Where are we bringing all the queer folks? When I was here, we hosted QPOC 2012, which was a national conference, Queer People of Color Conference, in 2012, which was a student-led conference, student-driven conference at that. And it would happen at the different schools. So when we had won the bid for it to happen at CSUN, we had over 500 people attend this conference. Queer folk, and they weren't just from California. They were from the nation as well as Canada and Australia. I always say that, 'cause I'm like, we had folks from Canada and Australia. So it was a great opportunity to also say, but what happened in that is students were empowered. Students also were like, oh, we're making these connections. We're building relationships across places. We're identifying different professional avenues that we can go into. And then also like there's opportunities for research that come from that. Yeah. So it was one of those things that I think I want to also create a space that recognizes CSUN as a space that does care. And I think having that type of space, I don't know, it was really powerful when me and my colleagues were there, and from all the stuff that we gathered from everyone who attended, and mostly all students, we're like, we need to have this more often. So that's one thing. I would say more ways to celebrate our students as scholars and practitioners, ways to connect our alum into the space. And also, I think another thing is another student brought up, where can we have more opportunities to write and to do more research? So I know that's one reason why also finding out about Cutie Pie Lab and connecting with them. But I think that there's one thing I heard was like, there's so much work or so much opportunity for our undergrad students. Where do our graduate students really fit into this space? So I know that's one of the next things that I'm really thinking about. And so that's why some of these conferences and some of these other things, because I'm also recognizing what is the background those students are bringing and what's important for them.
Did you think you'd be having these types of discussions 15 years ago?
Right. No. I was like, I remember as a student and with the limited experience that I've had, it was just like, oh, we'll finally have a space that we can just feel like we exist in. And so the buildup seems so surreal at times where I'm just like, wow, this is different. This is so different. And it's powerful. It's truly a great opportunity to see, because we're not just talking about surviving, we're talking about thriving. And I think that's a powerful place to sit in, especially as queer folk.
When you talk to your students now, do you tell them what it was like? Do they listen? That's another thing. Do they listen?
Right. Not only they listen, they're intrigued. I think the full year, first of all, I just heard they're planning something for Rainbow graduation where they're recognizing the alum. And I'm just like, what are y'all doing? They're like, you're just not going to know, but can we get the list of folks who works with you? But, especially now what I'm learning is that history is so critically important. We were talking about the first time here, and I'll be like, oh, yeah, and I'll introduce myself at times, and my team is there, and they'll be like, and he also started the Pride Center. And so then folks were just like, wait, what? You mean this wasn't always here? And I'm just like, well, yeah, no, actually, it actually wasn't here. And like, this is what happened. And then they're all just kind of engaged. So it also reminds me that I'm like, this is actually a conversation that folks also are like, tell us more, remind us. Also why it's so important when we need to activate and do things, but also that we can ask for the things that we need and be able to get them. So I think it was powerful reminders for me, also recognizing the role that I can play in terms of giving that history. And that to me has been great, seeing them being like, okay, tell us more. And I'm just like, oh, okay, well, all right, well, I'll start here. So yeah.
But when we often think about history, we're thinking about 100, 200, 300 years ago. You're talking 15 years ago.
15 years.
I mean, technically it incorporated and became official in 2012.
Right.
So it was 13 years ago. 13, that's not a long time.
It's not. And I think that's the piece that also, it's a great reminder of how much of a shift things are in just a little bit amount of time. Because I'm like, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I even talk, when I was at CSUN, I was not only just navigating coming out and and there was coming out is not just I'm being okay with who I am. I'm also just trying to be validated, and the amount of invalidation that would occur when I'm trying to be validated. But I was also navigating homelessness, alienation, not having those family things. So I'm even in that sense, I was like, 15 years ago, 10 years, whatever, that amount of time ago, I was in a place where I was like, oh, like, it's normal to go sleep at the park. It's normal to not have something to eat tonight. To where now I'm like, oh, like, what do I want to eat tonight? Like, what sounds like an option? So I think about even in those shifts where I'm just like, choice, and the timing of all of that. So it's
choice is a privilege.
Yeah, it's such a privilege, and I think history will always remind us of where those privileges lie, and why it's also important that we talk about our history in very real ways. Yeah.
Do you think your lessons, given the current political climate, are lessons that the students can learn from? Because it can seem so defeating. Yeah. But you were homeless for a while. You felt unloved for a while. For a long while.
A long while. Oh, my God.
But you're not, you got a wedding band on. You see somebody loves you.
No, right. I'm like, I got a daughter at home. She loves me. I have more than one source of income. I'm getting to my doctorate degree. I think that, I think, and I think that's what I'm seeing when I'm telling these stories. Mm-hmm. And our students are sitting there and they're just like, oh, well, hold on. And I'm just like, and just those reminders. And I think there's so many powerful stories that are happening, even across campus, off-site of campus, that our students haven't got the chance to witness yet, haven't got to bear witness to that, just as much as we're bearing witness to their stories and their narratives. So I think that, one part of me is also constantly trying to think about what is the opportunity of me leading the Pride Center, being in the Pride Center, and the narratives I can tell, so that way students can also find hope, be optimistic about some of the things, while also being realistic about where they are as well too. I don't want to always paint the happy-go-lucky picture there. So yeah, I think there's true benefit to that, and I'm seeing it as they ask me, as they want to know, and as they're curious to say, like, these are hard times. These are very stressful times as well too, and they don't have to be the only thing to take from this time, because we as people are powerful, and we have proven how powerful we are. And when we decide to take the action, we can also just be able to say, this is enough. It's time for us to now go into the ways that are important for us to exist in, because this is the country that we have decided to have. And when we want to have it, we will have it.
Martel, thank you so very much. Thank you for joining us on Matador Memory today, and thank you all for joining us on Matador Memories.